Good morning. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. Once again, it is Friday, November 12th of 2021. I'm Jeff Goldberg, your sales coach. I work with both individuals and organizations to help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I founded the Sales Pro Network as a place where salespeople can come and hang out, get coaching, get advice, share their successes, their challenges, and as many of you know, every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or I bring you someone who can add value to the profession of sales. If you're watching us live, please say hello in the comments. If you did not connect your Facebook account to StreamYard, please put your name in the comments. Otherwise, for us, it only says Facebook user. And let's see. Good morning, Steve Kent. Good morning, Brian Keith McNeil. Oh, you and Dean should absolutely know each other. That's what I told Brian. Yeah, you guys.
I know that guy.
Birds of a feather. There you go. Steve Kent says, good morning, Dean. So if you're watching us on the replay, please put replay in the comments. And as always, I brought you another fantastic guest. If you've been following for a while, you've met him before. Dean was on, I think, a few months ago. He is a success guru, a sales coach and trainer. He's a man of a million hats, and he's really terrific. But the reason I've invited him back is because Dean has written a book, and I think this book is special and it's well worth talking about. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to my friend, Dean Forbes, the optimization coach. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing? Good to be here, man.
I'm so glad to have you, because when I got this book, it's like, oh, here's another book on success. I'm always interested in reading about that. But as I read it, Dean, it was just so on target with the advice that you gave. Look, anytime I hear something that seems, that sounds like something I would say, I love it. But it was just jam-packed. So I really want to talk about mostly the book today. But before we do, could you just briefly introduce yourself to people who may not have seen you last time? Tell them what you do.
Okay. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Like Jeff said, my good friend here, my name's Dean. I am an optimization coach. I've been given lots of names throughout my 20 years of coaching. And I've just actually recently landed on optimization because I realized that what I do for most of my clients, most of them exist in the beauty industry or the wellness industry, is I help them optimize their business model so that they can make a greater impact and have better profitability. That's pretty much what I do at the end of the day. My focus most of the time when I optimize any business model has a lot to do with focusing on making sure your people are emotionally and professionally stable to carry out their jobs and perform the services that they do at the highest level of excellence. So that's what I do, and away we go.
Perfect. And for those of you who are in the network and saw the picture the other day, it was me holding up Dean's great book with a wacky look on my face, the top 7 killer secrets of incredibly successful people. So Dean, before we talk about what's in the book itself, what inspired you to write this book and publish it now?
So this book is a labor of love. It's like 10 years in the making. So a decade ago when I had a blog, what I would do is I would always blog about specific things that I had learned or hard-won battles about how you become successful, whether it be from my own personal experience or interviewing someone else that was successful. And so over the course of about 5 or 6 years, I extrapolated what I considered to be the 7 different secrets that every successful person I've ever met actually embody. And you could extrapolate them in many different ways. But this was how I broke it down in my mind from my experience and what I've also experienced in my life. One of the things that made me want to write this book is because when I've had to bounce back from major setbacks, and I've had a couple in my life, this book has the foundational information in it that allows me to bounce back not only bigger and better, but faster than most people on the planet would ever be able to do it, because you have this foundational principle behind you. And I published it now, honestly, because people kept bugging me about when you're going to publish the book. I think I had one conversation with one of my mentors, and he said something like, why do I still feel like you're waiting? Like, what are you waiting on? Like, when did you become the guy that waits on, perfection or something that happened that makes you do something? Like, get up and do something. And I said, you know what? I think it's time to publish the book. And away it went, published it.
That is great. That's right in line with something that somebody who I incredibly hold in huge regard yesterday. She said, her name is Ellen. She said, it's not going to come to you. You have to go get it.
I saw that.
Whatever the it is, you got to go get it. And that's what you did with this book. And one of the things I like about this book is not only that it's comprehensive, but it breaks things down into very logical categories, and it's all bite-sized chunks. I hope you're not offended, but I've written 2 books, and one of them I call it's great bathroom reading, because you can sit down, you can read a paragraph or a page or a chapter, boom, and you're getting a nugget there. Before we go on to the book itself, I want to ask you something else. First, I want to say good morning to Ben Gips. Good to see you here with us today. What's the next milestone you're actually looking to achieve?
Well, so my next milestone right now is I'm going to pivot my entire business to focus on the industry that actually made me. And that's the beauty industry. What I've noticed is that there's a huge gap in the beauty industry, in particular, salon owners and their teams, where they still struggle to hit the profitability that they need to enjoy the freedom that they deserve. And I've been through the entire gamut of the beauty industry, from serving in marketing to sales to leading teams to generating amazing sales and coaching salon owners and creating 6-figure stylists, dozens of them actually. And I've also gotten to a point where I owned a salon for 4 years, where we created in that salon no less than 8 or 9 legitimate 6-figure styles, making $100,000 or more per year, standing behind a chair, serving people. And because of that, I have a lot of reverence for that community. So I'm pivoting my entire coaching business right now to creating a program that will be the last program any salon owner will ever have to invest in order to consistently hit double-digit profitability every single year.
Wow, that's huge. And I know that's a big market. I think we've discussed this. I had a partner at one point. We were actively working with TG, and they were selling salon owners constantly. And, they struggle. Most of them struggle. It's hard to turn a profit. It's hard to keep good help. It's hard to get people into the shop. And so it sounds like this is really needed. Why don't we get into the book itself?
Yeah.
The first thing that struck me was killer communication skills. And you say that both the quality and the clarity of your communication has a huge impact on your ability to achieve results. So what does that really mean, and how can we communicate more effectively?
Well, so what that really means is that when I talk about clarity, and the quality of your communication, it's if I initiate a communication with you, Jeff, one of the things I must understand is that it is my responsibility to make sure that you've understood what I said or what I asked you for. So it's my responsibility to make sure that you heard what I said and that you know what I meant by what I said. So when it comes to clarity, especially, in business, even in your personal life, when you ask for something or request something, one of the things I like to do is say, hey, does that make sense? What questions do you have? And then I'll say, and if you say, yes, it makes sense, okay, so what are we doing? And then you will tell me. And then when you tell me what we're doing, I go, okay, yep, perfect. See you on Monday, right? But what we tend to do most of the time is we say something, it's in our head how we think it's supposed to go. We say it to the person, they leave, they come back and they give us something way different from what we asked for. And then we get upset that they didn't get it. Well, that's not good enough. Okay. We have to be better communicators than that. And if you want to achieve results at a very high level and faster, the quicker you get to the clarity of your communication and take responsibility for what you say, the faster everything else happens. It's freedom, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. And I communicate this way in business and in my personal life, and it absolutely works. It works on my kids.
I'd like to know more about that, but because this is a group for salespeople, what you're saying, not surprisingly, is right in line with what I teach salespeople. In life, we tend to take responsibility for one side of the communication, our own. I'm talking, you got to understand, except in sales, we need to take responsibility for both sides. I'm speaking and I have to take responsibility for your understanding also, because if not, like you said, we could be lost. They think they meant something else that when we misheard it, or we meant something and they didn't understand it. And then we walk away going, gee, I thought I did a great job.
I did a great job. Exactly. You know what, Jeff? Since this is the Sales Pro Network, I'm going to give the Sales Pro Network a great tip right now. And if you never take any other tips away from anything, if you're trying to sell something, understand something. People don't buy from you when they understand you. They buy from you when they feel understood by you. That's when they buy. When they feel understood by you, not the other way around. Pro tip.
Absolutely, positively. And we can relate it back to salons. I want to clearly communicate to my stylist exactly what I want, because what little hair I have left, I don't want her to blow it. And she's really good at what she does, and she follows instructions.
There you go.
I tell her what size, not scissors, but what's the thing?
The shears that she uses.
The shears, tell her exactly. By the way, I found out recently, I know her for many years, and she's got a great sense of humor. And I always go in, 3 3/4, please. And after about a year, she goes, Jeff, I've got to admit something to you. I lost my 3 3/4 setting like a year ago. I've been doing 3.5. I'm like, are you kidding me? She goes, no, but you love the way you look, right? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. But it's that clear communication that gets you what you want. You've got to take responsibility. You also talk about listening, which I think is an art and a skill that most salespeople don't have. But you talk about listening with an open heart and mind, and I like that thought. Can you elaborate on what that really means?
Yeah, so I always talk about listening with your third ear, which is your heart. Because a lot of times people say something and you hear the words they're saying. If you watch their body language and everything else, you can read more into what they're saying. So your job is to ask follow-up questions to make sure you really understand where they're trying to go. So when I listen with the third ear, I'm always listening also for what's not being said. And I'm the type of person that's willing to ask somebody, okay, so what aren't you telling me? What is it that you don't actually want me to know? And because if we can't get to a place of truth, I can't really help you. So it's not about nodding and saying, okay, I hear you, I see you. That is just so ridiculous, because you can nod all day long just to wait to get to say what you have to say. But if you miss the boat on what the person, because look, we talked about the first point about how taking responsibility for both sides of the conversation, right? Well, the person that you're usually trying to help doesn't care about your side of the conversation. They only care about theirs. So we have another responsibility of listening with the third ear, like what's really going on here? What is happening? So I call it listening with the third ear, which means your ears are open, but also your heart. The other thing is you need to suspend your personal agenda. This has nothing to do with you. You might have a script in your head, something you want to get done. So here's something I ask when I get on a phone call to, I'm presenting to a client. I ask them, what desired outcomes do you need to happen on this call for you to feel like it was a success? What do you need to happen on this call for you to feel like it was a success? And then they tell me, and then I say, okay, so based on what you just told me that you want this, this, and this, my goal then is to provide A, B, C. And I'll say, Jeff, do my goals align with your desired outcomes for this call? Yes or no? And not until you tell me absolutely yes, do I move on to the rest of the presentation, right? Because now that person is locked in and they know you're listening and they know you care. You've got to care.
Yeah, and I find that listening skills are sorely lacking in most salespeople. I teach what I call active listening, and I know you can relate. Most of the time I find salespeople are listening to wait for the break where they can jump in and share their next bit of brilliance instead of listening to really understand somebody. And, when I teach active listening with audiences, I'm actually talking out two sides of my mouth at the same time. One is you've got to be completely focused on the other person and open to whatever they're saying. But at the same time, I want the other side to be thinking, what is this person saying? What do I think they're trying to say? And how does this fit in with what I already know? It's kind of, you're splitting your concentration. But if you're focused on how can I get out my next bit of brilliance, or what I can't wait till they shut up so I can tell them the next thing I want to tell them. Then you're not really listening. You're listening not to be heard, but not to be, you're listening to hear, but not to understand.
Correct. So, that is, I couldn't have said it better myself, Jeff. You're listening to hear, but not to understand. Exactly.
Well, I think in the book you said it beautifully, and I really like the concept of the third ear being the heart. That's great. Good morning. Good morning. It's Don Levine logging in as Bonnie again. One of these days you're going to get the technology right. And somebody said, good morning. Sorry, it just says Facebook user. Unless you put in your name, we don't know who you are. But hopefully that's, I'm betting that's Val.
Okay.
We'll find out in a little bit. So one of the things I'm huge on, because I hate cold calling, I love teaching it. Love teaching it to people. I still think it's the most cost-effective and time-efficient way to develop business if you don't have a bunch on your calendar. But I'm huge on networking, and you've got killer networking in there. So one of the things you talk about in terms of being a killer networker is staying in touch. Complete agreement, of course. How do you suggest people? Why is it so important if you're networking to stay in touch? And how do you suggest people do that?
Well, why it's important is because the first time you touch a person, you leave an impression, right? But with the high touch world and the high distraction world we live in today, you could easily get lost in the noise. And I think it's important to stay in touch. One of my motivations to stay in touch is I'm always looking for a way to add value wherever I can, to people, to businesses, to whatever. So my motivation is real simple. I'm looking for a way to add value, right? So you want to stay in touch so that you don't get beaten down by the white noise and the distractions in the next episode of Netflix or the Kardashians, right? You want to make sure that you can cut through all that like a samurai sword. Now, once you understand why you need to do that, how important it is, because you don't want to get lost in the shuffle, the way you do it is use your freaking calendar, man. I use my calendar to stay in touch all the time. I'll make a reminder for myself. Hey, call Jeff on blah, 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 blah. It's really as simple as that. And just whatever mode you use to make sure you get your stuff done every day, that's where you want to put the follow-up. I put follow-up on my calendar all the time. Put it to you like this. I literally just signed a client 2 days ago. Okay. And all of that was follow-up. I mean, my first touch to that client was probably a month and a half ago. And at the time when I touched her, she wasn't ready for me, meaning her business wasn't in a place where she was ready to hire somebody like me, right? She was at the beginning phase or whatever. And I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I have a resource to direct you to help you get your message penetration and your impact positioning right. And it's absolutely free. I just want to see you grow. And I meant it. So I sent it to her. She sent me a message. Oh my God, Dean, this blows my mind, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, how about I follow up with you, once a week just to see how you're doing, see how you're implementing this and see if it works. So I sent her a message. She said, wow, you actually messaged me. Okay. And I did that every week and a half just to see how she was doing. And then she came back to me and said, Dean, I am so ready. What's your offer again? I placed the offer to her and I said, and you could pay in payment. She's like, no, I want to do it all at once. And she just sent the money. Contract signed. But that was strictly follow-up from a genuine place of wanting to add value.
Yeah.
Extremely important.
Yep. When you're selling, you certainly have to do that. And when you're networking too, I think some people think, I go to my networking group and I do my brief commercial once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month, however often they meet. And that would be good enough, except it's not, because people, when you're networking, if what you're looking for are referrals, which is why most of us network, the group I'm in has lots of other values besides that. But obviously we're investing our time and money because we'd like to get some referrals and leads. People have to know you, like you, and trust you. That's for sure. And that doesn't happen overnight. And it's that knowing that somebody else cares about you that makes you want to take care of them, that makes you want to help them. And I've got a perfect example. There's a guy in my group. He's actually been in the group 33 years. The group's been around 33 years. I've been in it for about 17 now. And he's a very high-priced employment attorney, really good at what he does. About every 6 or 8 weeks, my cell phone rings and I see his name on it. Now, the way my psychology is wired up is when I see a lawyer's name on my phone, I'm like, oh no, what did I do now? What kind of trouble am I in? Because that's just the way my psychology works. And it's never trouble. It's always, hey, it's Doug. How you doing? I'm like, hey, Doug, how are you doing? He goes, fine. I'm like, what can I do for you? He goes, nothing. I just called to see how you're doing. I'm like, really? That you just called to check in? Every time he's just calling to say hi, see how I'm doing. Now, here's the thing. Every time when I hang up, I go, God damn, I love Doug. I know he charges $550 an hour, and he just took 5 minutes out of his day to call me and just say hi and see if I needed any help. That's somebody I want to help, because the law of reciprocity says when somebody does something nice for you, you tend to want to do something nice for them. So that staying in touch is crucial. And I also love what you said, always adding value. He adds value to my life just by checking in. So it's crucial that we stay in touch like that. By the way, Steve Sapato, who is a professional speaker, said that was a great tip, when they understand.
Yeah.
And Chris Jones says, good morning, love your energy. And Deem is dropping some golden nuggets.
Hey, Jeff.
He sure is. He's got more, Chris, I promise. So you also talk in networking about asking for help. And I find that it's crucial, again, and people often hesitate to ask for help. So why do you think people are hesitant to ask for help, and how can they get past that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be brutally honest about this right now, okay? And, guys, let this sink in for a minute. One of the reasons why people hesitate to ask for help is because they don't want to be on the hook to help another person. They don't want to pay it forward. They don't want the burden or the responsibility of, well, if I ask for help and somebody helps me, then I have to do something for somebody else eventually, kind of thing. So they don't want that expectation to be put on them. And whether you believe this or not, whether you know it or not, I promise you, this is active in your life if you don't realize it. You
kind of like the Godfather, right? I'll do you a favor, and then someday I'm going to ask you for a favor too.
And that's what you believe. So that's the one reason people don't ask for help. The other reason is people are afraid that people would rather not help. In other words, if I have a secret to making tons of money or having the love of my life or always looking the most beautiful. Why would I want to give it to you? And what people don't realize is that most of the time, people's psychology isn't made up of wanting to be mean or they want the platform to help someone. People actually love the platform where they get to help another person. It makes them feel good. Maybe it feeds their ego. It doesn't really matter. So that fear that a person doesn't want to help you or there's going to be some rejection, that actually is unfounded in every situation I've ever thought of. And then the other part, like I said, is you don't want the burden of, the reciprocity, as you just talked about. And those are the two key things I found in my experience in 20 years, why people don't ask for help. They're afraid of either what's going to be expected of them or that they're going to get shunned because they ask for help.
Well, I actually have a third one to add. And it's that I think sometimes people don't want to look like they need help. If I need help from someone, I must be less than. And this used to be an issue for me until it was shown to me time and time again that you can be strong and powerful and still need help from other people. And there's no shame in asking.
No shame.
And I find that many, if not most people, including highly successful people, are happy to help. I love helping people. I truly love
it. Jeff, it's why we do what we do. We want to help people. And yeah, highly successful people are always looking to help other people. There's no question about it. And that's one of the reasons they're successful, because they've helped other people, So I totally believe in that. And yeah, that third one you just said is absolutely on point. If you need help, it means you're weak.
Yeah, it took me a while to get past that, but there's a saying, no man is an island. It takes a village. There's always somebody else who knows something that you don't know or can do something that you can't. And there's no shame in asking for help. In fact, it actually is a gift to the other person. When somebody asks me for help and I can actually do it, like you said, I get to feel good. Mm-hmm. I've got something you need and I can give that to you. Man, that makes me feel good. It's enriching your life and that makes me feel good too.
Absolutely.
So it's a win-win.
Validates the relationship and the trust that you have in that person that you asked in the first place. And they go, this person really values what I bring to the table. It's pretty cool.
Yep. Brian Keith McNeil, who we both love, says highly successful people are always looking to help people. Thanks, Dean.
Absolutely.
I'm with you, Brian. I'm going to move on to another subject that you talk about, negotiating. I get asked about this all the time because most people
love this one. One of my favorite topics.
Most people suck at negotiating. And you say in order to be a killer negotiator, foresight is better than hindsight. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so I've found anyway in the last 2 decades that a lot of times people walk into a negotiation already hopped up on what their agenda is, what they have to accomplish, who they have to conquer, how they have to convince and persuade and make sure that they walk out of there with a win. And they do very little recon work on who they're talking to and what makes that other side tick. What do they really need? What value would they need to walk away from this meeting with to make them go, I really want to work with that guy. So for me, when I say foresight's better than hindsight is you don't want to learn the key things about the other negotiating party when you're in the negotiation. You want to try to learn that stuff before. And when you do your homework, people actually appreciate that. I've said plenty of times, hey, you know what? I noticed that on your website, you focus on donating to homeless every year and that you always do this thing at St. Matthew's every year. Tell me more about that. Now, they're willing to tell you about it, but the fact that you know that the value of you just goes straight to the roof in their minds, that you know that, and I don't look for things that's a commodity that everybody else does. I look for the unique thing about the other side that makes them tick, that makes them get up in the morning. That's what I want to find out, and here's what's funny, Jeff. Let me tell you how well this works. This works so well. And if you're genuine, I've walked into a negotiation before where I said, you know what? I tried to find out what you guys really do. Like, what makes you tick? And there was nothing out there that I could find. So before we start anything, what I want to learn from you guys is, why do you do what you do? Tell me a story. Paint me a vivid picture. Jaws drop, mic drop, everything dropped. It still works. That's my point. Still works.
Yeah. I like what you said when you started out talking about this, that, almost every book I've ever read on negotiating and every expert I've listened to, they tend to equate sales to war. Sales is war, and you've got to win. It's your job to crush the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the best negotiations are a win-win. I mean, it's certainly possible, if the situation is right, to crush somebody in a negotiation and get the deal. But you're certainly not going to create a long-term customer that way.
No.
You have to find a way to have them win and you win. And I know we're here to talk about your book, The Top 7 Killer Secrets of Incredibly Successful People, but I'm going to mention another one, which I love. It's the Transparency Sale by Todd Capone. If you haven't read it, guys, read Dean's first and then read that one next. But he talks about transparent negotiations, and it's the word transparency kind of lends itself, but it's a real eye opener, because he says, instead of holding your cards back, ask people what they're looking for and tell them what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Come out and say, what in a perfect world, what would you want from this? And then tell them what you want. And he says quite often you'll find that it's easy to align the two, but only if you're that transparent, if you're that honest, and
you got to open it up.
And if you're coming from, I want you to win and me to win, not
Correct.
You to win over me or me to win over you. So it's kind of a different place to come from.
Yep. Very different. Most people don't do that. Like I said in the book, I say, sit on the same side. Sit on the same side. Sit next to people. Hey, what's going on? What do you really want to see here? What would make this the most valuable relationship you have in your business right now? Sit on the same side. It's not a war. We're not opponents.
That was actually the next bullet point that I had. Sit on the same side. What did you mean by that? So you're really talking about becoming partners.
Yeah. And if you're actually in a room, I physically sit on the same side. Like if we're in a conference room, I don't do negotiations where they're over there and I'm over here. We sit on the same side. I find a seat next to somebody on that side. That's how it works.
It's funny how the little psychological stuff like that makes a huge difference. It really does. And guys, if you think it doesn't, Dean and I are here to tell you it absolutely does. 100%. I learned this a million years ago. I sold insurance for a year. We were selling annuities, insurance as an annuity. And I was taught, and this was very, very early in my career, that when you're a life insurance salesperson, first of all, you want to get people in the most comfy room in the house, which is usually the kitchen. And then we were instructed, never, ever sit across the table from the wife and husband. You want to sit on a corner so that you're kind of catty corner to them, or on the same side as them. But especially catty corner, because if you're sitting, if one person is on one side and the other person's on the other side, and you're in the middle and you're looking at Mrs. Jones, Mr. Jones might be behind you going, and you want to see them both, and you want to feel close to both of them. So you're saying actually physically sit on the same side, so you don't have that barrier between you.
No barriers. Sit on the same side. This is a collaboration more so than anything else.
And I know that one of the things you're doing in your salon trainings is you're teaching people how to have a real team atmosphere. How do you create the right environment? And one of the things you talk about, which I loved, is foster heretics. What do you mean by
that? So when I worked at L'Oreal years ago, they used to call me the rogue, because I never stayed on a track that, so you get put on a track, right? And the track is good for the most part, but then you come up on this anomaly in the road where a person needs help, but they need a different kind of help. But you have the skills, the talent, and the resources to actually help that person get to where they need to go and then put them back on track. So the question is, do you color outside the lines to help that person, or do you stay on the lines? Well, I can't help you, I guess, because I'm on this line. No, you got to color outside the track. The other thing is, I want new ideas. If you are not coming to the table at meetings with new ideas, if you're not engaging, if we're not debating back and forth, so we can get to a point where we have that alternative that's better than any idea we could each individually think of, I don't need you on the team. I don't need you to yes man and kiss my you know what, because that's not going to get us anywhere. We're not going to be successful by that, right? Look, the smart leader knows that one of the things he needs to do is to put the right people in place, that have the skills, talent, resources that he doesn't have or she doesn't have. And a lot of times you want to put smarter people around you. You want leadership to come from any rank in your company. And if you open a door for people to do that, oh baby, when you let people go, their ingenuity, their authenticity, their creativity, their intelligence will soar, especially if they know it's a safe environment to have that platform. So we foster what we call heretics. Those are the ones that are willing to go against the grain. Like my dad used to say all the time, he said, Dean, observe the masses and do the opposite. Foster heretics.
My favorite thing about talking to you is when you do the impression of your father. It's the best. And is discouraging conformists just the opposite of fostering heretics?
Exactly what it is. You do not want people on your team that are just going to go, okay, all right. See, here's what happens. When you have people who just conform to conform, you'll end up with what I call malicious compliance. That's when people say things like, all right, Jeff, I'll do it. I guess you're the boss. But their heart's not in it, right? Because they don't really think it's gonna work. But they're like, well, I guess you pay my bills. You know what I'm saying? You sign my check. So I guess I'll just do it. Instead of saying, hey, Jeff, you know what? I've been on this ground floor for like the last 6 months, and I don't think what you said is gonna work, and here's why. And my job then is say, okay, well, then Dean, if you don't think that's going to work, what do you think will? Simple as that, man. So, abhor conformists, foster heretics.
So the boss who's looking just to be yes to death is really just managing by ego, as opposed to the boss who really wants to grow their company, their salon in your case, or their organization. They really need to hear from other people. And in fact, I think that's a brilliant boss. Who wants to hear the opposite view.
Absolutely.
That doesn't think they're right every single time. And it may end, look, at the end of the day, the boss is the boss and they get to make a final decision, but encouraging people to open up and have other ideas, including complete opposition to what you think is right, it fosters creativity.
It does.
And that's what we want in an organization. I had a client, we just ended a 5-year engagement, and the CEO of the company, if you know the DISC profile, have you ever done the DISC profile?
Yeah.
So I'm a high D. Not too hard to figure that one out. He's also a high D. And for those of you who don't know, that means dominant. We tend to dominate conversations, rooms. We're very take charge. You too, Dean. Yeah. So, when we first started talking about working together, I brought up, I said, look, man, we're both high Ds. And that means we're probably going to butt heads. And I want you to know that if we do this, if you and I choose to work together, by the way, I never, ever say, if you decide to hire me, if we choose to work together, I got to let you know, I'm not a yes man. You're not going to pay me the amount of money that I'm going to charge you and engage me for my expertise, just wanting to hear yes. My job is to tell you no when no is correct, to give you the opposite viewpoint and to argue it strongly. At the end of the day, you own the company. You're going to do whatever you want, but I'm not a yes man. And he said, Jeff, that's exactly what I want. And I will argue right back in your face, and we might scream and holler at each other, which we did more than once. But at the end of the day, I'm hiring you because I want to hear that I may not be right. And that's the kind of organization where they can really grow and foster a lot of creativity to do great things, as opposed to I'm the boss, do it my way.
Right.
I think, do you think at some point, are there times when it's appropriate to say I'm the boss and do it my way?
There are times when it's appropriate to do that. When there's so put it like this, when there's a breakdown in a room one of my mentors would say, Dean, decisions should be made at the point of richest information. Okay. So what we're attempting to do, I have the richest information about that thing. Then we have a duty to try it the way we know it should be done, because the other people in the room have no frame of reference whatsoever from which to pull from to say, hey, this is the way it should be done. So the only goal is, if somebody wants to go out and do some research, that's fine. But at that point, say, hey, you know what, guys, I hear what you're saying. I've been doing this for 15 years and you've been doing it for 1. Okay. So in all fairness to you, when you're doing hair, okay, I would never tell you how to do hair because I have no clue what you're doing. So I trust you. All I'm going to do is ask you for the same respect to trust me. I've been in sales for 15 years. And I'm telling you right now, if you say it this way, do it this way, think this way, you're going to make money. Are you in or out? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the boss, owner, CEO, president, they have a responsibility to make decisions, but they should be making them based on best information from all sources.
Correct.
And if you're only managing, here's how I've always done it, here's the way it's got to be, you could be making a huge mistake. And this same gentleman who I was talking about earlier, we had that issue. They were a commercial moving and storage company, and as any company would do, you get a prospect, you go out, you do an estimate, you count off all the desks and the chairs and all that stuff. And then you come back with a quote and you hopefully close the business. And when COVID hit, obviously it became very, very difficult to go see places physically. One of the salespeople had a brilliant idea. He said, I'm going to start doing estimates over the phone and I'll use Zoom. I'll just or FaceTime. People can just show me their stuff. And the owner found out about it. He was pretty upset about it. He said, I don't want him doing that. And we had a discussion, and this guy was really a terrific guy to work with because he was very opinionated. He had a lot of experience, highly successful, but he also was the kind of guy that if you could prove your point or you had a good argument, he would listen to it. And what he realized was him saying, no, you can't do it that way, was simply his 28 or 30 years of experience saying, well, that's the way we've always done it.
Right.
Through the conversation, he was able to say, oh, yeah, you know what? That's the way we've always done it, but we can't do it that way right now. So we do have to change. And things shifted in a second.
Just like that, right?
By being open. Yes, absolutely right. Brian Keith McNeil asking the name of that book again. Yes, it's The Transparency Sale. And the author is Todd Caponi, Caponi. One of the best sales books I've read in the last probably 20 years, and I read them all. Really awesome. Dean's book again is The Top 7 Killer Secrets of Incredibly Successful People. It's on Amazon, right, Dean?
It is.
We'll say that again at the end, I promise. You've also got, and I love this, you've got 7 different ways to add value to anything. What's your favorite way?
I think my favorite way is differentiation, right? Because I think that when you become the difference that makes the difference, right, then people can't commoditize you. So what I mean by that is, look, if you do things the same way that everybody else does it, right? People look at what your service and they say, well, this service is the same as a service over here. There's no difference in the two. I'm going to go with the cheaper one, right? So I believe that our job is to really find ways to make sure that we can differentiate ourselves from everybody else. Why am I picking you? Okay. And I literally, in my presentations, when I'm talking to a potential customer or client, I'll say, look, most coaches who work with salons like yours tend to focus on promotions, new marketing strategies, social media, and, a new funnel, and changing out the promotions, like, every week, every month, to make sure that you have people coming in a chair. And if that's what you want, that's fine. That's a tactical approach that addresses symptoms. If you want that, then you should invest in that. But if you want a more long-term, impact-centered approach that focuses on taking care of your people first, before you lock them into your systems for long-term effect, you should invest in this. I optimize all those things in your business that make everything else move, so you can be successful with your promotions and your funnels and your social media. But until the people are right, your message is right, your impact position is right, and your story is right, and your success proposition is right, none of that's going to make any sense. Which one of these business models would you like to build? See, I just gave it to you, and mine is clearly completely different from the other one. That's the point. So that is my favorite.
Yeah, but all salespeople need to know what I call their USP. What's your unique selling proposition? What
does
make you different? And it's not about what makes you better, because that implies the other guy's not as good. And it's never smart to knock your competition. But what is it that makes us different? What sets us apart? Look, there's a million guys and gals like you and me who do what we do.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, none is good, but there's lots and lots of people. And I know my prospects always ask, why you, Jeff? What makes you different?
What makes you different?
Why should I use you? And I have some pretty good answers to that. There's lots of sales coaches and lots of sales trainers, but not everybody has the experience that I have. Not everybody brings the energy that I do or the commitment that I do. And I often tell people, and I have a background in theater and stand-up comedy. I'm a lot of fun to work with. I can guarantee you this: when I'm training your people, nobody's going to sleep.
Right.
And that's a useful thing to say. It's not just bragging. It's true.
It's true.
It's useful because everybody has sat in an audience where you want to poke your ears out with red hot pokers, because even though the information might be useful, the presenter sucks. They just are horrible, and you want to kill yourself. It's like, what am I doing?
Yourself in the eye with a needle.
And I think most salespeople don't take the time to figure out what is that differentiator that you're talking about. Exactly. What is your unique selling proposition?
And by the way, Jeff, just for clarity for people who are going to buy the book, when I talk about difference, that is the secret of innovation. By the way, that's the difference. See, guys, just so you know, I just made a mistake. I did write the book. I talk about this all the time. I forgot the word that I used to actually accentuate difference. It's innovate. That's the one you want to look at. That's my favorite. How do you innovate? How do you be different? Just for clarity.
Yeah, because if you can't point it out, then people don't know. It's like banks. I think they're a perfect example. What's the difference between banks? They all offer checking accounts. They all offer savings accounts. Most of them offer mortgages and insurance. they're like an eighth of a point difference in terms of their interest rates, if they even have one. So what's the difference? There's none.
Not that big of a difference.
So they better figure out something. Maybe it's better customer service. I don't know what it is, but I used to work with Citibank. They were a big client of mine for about 6 years in a row. They flew me all across the country dealing with various places. And they actually had my whole relationship. In banking, what a banker is looking for is what's called your whole relationship. They want all your checking, all your savings. And Citibank, just coincidentally, it wasn't because they were using my services. I had been a Citibank customer before that, but they had all my business accounts, all my personal, they had everything, credit cards, everything, until they screwed up one time. Now, I'm sure that, like you, Dean, to this day, I get mail every day from various banks that want my business. I get calls from branch managers.
I get that, yeah.
Mr. Goldberg, we'd love to talk to you about, opening an account here. And I was loyal to Citibank because I had no complaints until they screwed up. And if I told you what they did, you'd go, really? And it was just the stupidest thing, but it pissed me off so much. I'll give you I was applying for a tiny line of credit. And I get a form letter from South Dakota, where all their stuff comes from, saying, yeah, we need 2 years worth of your tax returns to get this tiny line of credit. And I'm telling you, they had all my money. They knew how. The tiny line of credit was nowhere near what they had of my money, but they want 2 years worth of tax returns. So I pick up the phone and I call the number. I said, hi, here's who I am, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we need 2 years worth of your tax returns. I said, so you're telling me you want me to copy and then fax you 72 pages of tax returns in order to get this insignificant amount? They said, yes, that's what we need. I said, what if I'm not going to do that? Then we can't approve it. I said, okay, have a great day. And I hung up. I wrote F you on the piece of paper, and I stuck it in an envelope and sent it back. And I got in my car and immediately drove to my branch, and I said, close every account I've got.
Wow.
There is no difference between banks. And I went to one of the ones that have been courting me for years. But we do have to find a way to differentiate ourselves.
Always.
Especially, one salon, another salon. I mean, for me, I happen to like that it's nearby. The prices aren't insane because I have very easy, what little I have left, it's very easy to cut my hair straight. And I love the stylist. If she went someplace else, I'd follow her. But
there you go.
Me, one salon's another. When I lived in New York City, it turned out there's a huge difference in salons in terms of this.
Yeah, sure.
I have to share this with you because it was such an eye opener for me. I had a guy who lived in my the same building as I did in Soho, and he had a place called So Hair, which I thought was very clever, just around the block from me. And he's, Jeff, you should come get your hair cut by me. I'm like, come on, I don't want to bother. He goes, yeah, come in one time. We both had dogs. We used to chat all the time. So I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go get my hair cut from him. How bad can he screw up my hair?
Right.
Well, he didn't screw up my hair, but we got to the end and I go up to pay. And here's what I heard, $90. I said, what? $90. Is it? That's what you charge for a normal haircut? Yeah, $90. I'm like, okay, guess I'm not coming back to So Hair anymore. I'm going back to Supercuts for $16 because I just, I guess if I'm a woman with curly hair or something like that, maybe I need a $90 haircut. But there is a difference in price. But there was no difference in the haircut. And as much as I like the guy and would like to support his effort, I'm not paying $90 for a haircut. I can get the same one for $20. And I don't mind spending money, Dean. I got no problem spending money, but I want some value for it.
The value has to be built up to that point. You have to fill that value gap. You know what amazes me, Jeff? I'm amazed at how many people, not just salespeople, people in general who are in business, who don't actually ask the client or the customer, what is their desired outcome? I don't understand how people don't ask that. Like, what needs to happen? Like in terms of what needs to happen for me to have all your business in this bank? What needs to happen for me to have this real estate in your business? What needs to happen? How does this need to go? What do you need to see? Why are we asking these questions?
Crucial question. It's crucial. To me, the easiest way to ask it is, in my world, it's always, let's say you and I decide to work together and we've gone 3 months or 6 months down the line. What will have changed so that you say, wow, I'm so glad I chose Jeff Goldberg? What will your people be doing more of? Or what will they be doing less of? Or what will they be doing better? What would it take for you to go, wow, I made a great decision? Because if you can ask a question like that early on in the sales process, they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. And then all you have to do is give it to them.
Give it to them.
Assuming you can. Look, there are certainly instances, not often, but sometimes they want something. I'm like, I'm not your guy. Let me introduce you to my friend Dean Forbes or Brian Keith McNeil. Those guys do exactly what you want. I'm not your guy. But normally when somebody says, well, I'm looking to get more prospects. I help salespeople do that. I'm looking to close more business. Good, you got the right guy. I'm going to help you close more business.
There you go.
Let them tell you. It goes back to the listening thing with an open heart. Let them tell you what they want instead of you telling, here's what I've got. Let's shove that into this hole.
Right?
Let's talk about some sales killers in the time we have left, because this is a group of salespeople. So your first one was assumption. That's a sales killer. What do you mean by assumption?
Well, actually, it's as simple as what it says. Like, you either assume that you know what their roadblocks are, or you assume you know exactly what they want without asking them. So you start presenting. Basically, what assumption is, you present to the potential client from your frame of reference and not theirs. That's a big mistake. Period. End of story. Because they're going to be looking at you like, this guy doesn't even know me.
Yeah.
Doesn't even know me.
I like that. I call that going in stupid.
Going in stupid. And you're going to pay a very big dumb tax for doing that.
Yeah. And I don't mean be stupid. But don't go in arrogant, maybe a better way of saying it. And the perfect example for me is just by accident, not because I've planned it, excuse me, this way. I've done a lot of training for companies that sell advertising. Mm-hmm. It'd be hard for you to come up with some type of advertising where I haven't trained a company that does that. So it means I could walk into any company in the world that sells advertising and say this. If you're the vice president of sales, hey, Dean, I've done so much work training advertising salespeople. I know exactly what their problems are, and here's how I'm going to solve them for you. And here's the thing. I'd be right, except I'd also be seen as arrogant.
Yep.
And that's not what the other person wants. So a better way for me is, hey, I've done a lot of work in the world of advertising, training salespeople who do exactly what you do. But why don't you tell me about your particular situation?
Exactly.
Instead of me assuming that I know, even though I might, it doesn't feel good to the prospect.
Not at all. So assumption kills the sale right off the back. They're just waiting for you to shut up so they can tell you no.
Exactly right. Now, what about cluelessness? You said that's a sales killer too.
Yeah. So in other words, so there are two levels of cluelessness. Remember, we talked about recon before when it came to kill networking or the negotiation part. You want to know who you're talking to, right? Meaning you want to know the DNA, what makes them up. You want to know where they buy their coffee. Are they a Starbucks person or a Dunkin' Donuts person? So you need to have a clue as to whom you're dealing with, number one. The second thing is, you can't gloss over any objection or problems that they bring up just so you can get to your solution that you're trying to offer, because they will see you as clueless. This guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. When people say you don't know what you're talking about, a lot of times it means that you haven't heard them. They don't feel heard by you. So they think you're completely clueless and that you're not the expert that you say you are. So you got to listen. You have to do recon work. You need to know who you're talking to. And by the way, I can't stress this enough. I am so big on transparency that if I can't find the information I need before I start any conversation, I ask for that information. Hey, you know what? Where do you buy your coffee? Do you like Starbucks or do you like Dunkin' Donuts? I'm just curious because I couldn't find that out, because it might be important, right? Where do you like to buy your coffee? I ask those questions.
And there's no shame when somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to in saying, I don't know the answer to that and I don't want to mislead you. Let me get the information. I'll get back to you.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Salespeople think they've got to know everything. We've got to dazzle people with our brilliance. No, we don't.
No. We need the right questions, not always the right answers. The better questions are more important than right answers.
Yep. Brian says Dean is obviously a consultative sales model proponent. We both are.
100%.
And I think Brian is too.
Of course he is.
How about judgment? You say that's a killer too.
Yeah. So it's judging the book by its cover. You walk in, you see the person, you see where they are, and you see all those things, and you make up things in your mind of what you think their story is. You start telling yourself the story. I mean, look, we're all guilty of judging people in the first 3 seconds when we see them based on what they're wearing, the shoes, the this, the that, and the third. But you have to suspend all that and allow their story to come alive. You have to allow the moment to direct you and instruct you in terms of what you're going to do, rather than starting to speak. Or the moment you start to think from a place of judgment, your entire presentation gets corroded and instantly, just messed up because of that. And you could end up, what did Stephen Covey say? It would be a terrible thing to climb the ladder of success all the way to the top, only to find out that your ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. That would suck.
Yeah, it sure would. How about indifference?
Yeah, so indifference is when you don't care one way or the other. People can sense that. In other words, if you're just trying to get the sale. So in other words, you're trying to get the sale so badly that you're trying to plug the hole of every objection they're giving you just so you can get the sale out the door without having any real understanding. It's like, you know, this person's story or plight doesn't matter to me as much as making the next sale on to the next. And when you have that kind of attitude, the context will come across and people can see it. A lot of times people they can't even articulate why they told you no, but they feel it. There's a feeling that goes along with the whole sales process. And people should not forget, the point of the sales process isn't to make a sale. It's to get people to buy what they truly want. You need to make sure whatever it is you're selling is going to meet or exceed your client's definition of success, not yours. Their definition of success. It needs to align with that. That's the whole point.
It's to truly serve.
Truly serve.
Got it. Okay. Now this one should be obvious to everybody, but apparently it's not. Dishonesty is a sales killer.
I don't know, Jeff. You know, I find that any wins you get out of dishonesty will be short-lived. Okay. I mean, look, I don't know about anybody else here on that's listening, but in my entire life, I've been alive for 47 years. I've been dishonest a few times. Okay. When I was a kid, as an adult, I've done some things where you might even say, oh, it was only a white lie. It's still dishonest, man. Still dishonest. It's still dishonest. And at the end of the day, I don't know how you can feel good about that, regardless of what you achieve, because reciprocity won't be there. Karma will come and get you. This is just what I believe, you know? And so I'm a big proponent of just being honest in every conversation. Like, hey, look, I'm not your guy. You know, that young lady that I signed a month and a half later, I really could have signed her the first time around because I know that can be pretty convincing when I'm on a sales call, but she wasn't ready for what I was bringing to the table. She would have gotten creamed by what I was bringing to the table just a month and a half ago. And I told her no and directed her to another place where she could get some resources to build up her foundation first so she could be ready for me. Now, look, I'm not trying to give myself a pat on the back here, but she isn't going anywhere after this. She knows me, she likes me, and she trusts me because I did what I said I was going to do. Do what you say you're going to do. Don't do something else. You know, and when you mess up, say you messed up. People are cool with that. You're human. It humanizes you.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I think you responded to it. I posted in the Sales Pro Network the other day.
Yeah.
When is it ever okay to lie to a customer? And overwhelmingly, everybody said some version of never. There were a couple that seemed to be looking for a few loopholes there. But
yeah, of course.
I'm with you. Little white lies, little red. I don't care what color you call them. It's inappropriate. If you can't be 100% honest with your prospect, you should find something else to sell.
Yeah.
If you've got to lie about your product or service, then you're in the wrong business.
You're in the wrong business.
Absolutely. We're running out of time, but one of the things I also liked is you said start at the finish line. Are we talking about reverse engineering here?
Well, some people look at it as reverse engineering, but you know, if you look at some of the greatest champions of all time, you know, Michael Jordan, Usain Bolt, fastest man alive, you know, Simone Biles, you know, you look at any of these people, you know, we talk about Brett Favre and, you know, it's just, here's what happens. They visualize themselves already winning before they start the day. That's the bottom line. You know, the reason why they seem so clear about what they're doing is because they already seen themselves with the trophy in hand. It's done, finished. They're just going out to execute the motions right now, but in their mind, it's already done. And when you start there, your level of motivation goes up. Your execution priorities tend to take a sharp turn going upward when you do that. When you move through chaos and not clear, that's harder. You know, your movements become stagnant or overwhelming or frustrating. It makes you want to give up and quit. But if you visualize the end first, you know, I mean, look, I remember the stylist that actually bought our salon. The first thing I did when I walked in was I raised prices across the board. And she couldn't see it. And she was like, Dean, what do you think is going to happen? I was like, what do you mean? It's like, well, what about my clients? Are they going to leave? I said, not one client's going to leave. Not going to happen. They love you. I said, Bryn, they love you. They're not going to leave. Here's what you say when you say it. And she almost had a heart attack. I raised her prices $20 per service across the board. Okay. And she thought everybody was going to leave. Well, guess what? Nobody left because she's that good, that personable, that genuine when she comes across to her guests that are in the chair. The one person that called and complained about her prices just wanted to complain about the prices. And when I said, well, you can feel free to go to Bryn's protege. She's she's 2 levels down. She's great. Bryn trained her. She's like, no, only Bryn can do my hair. It's like, there you go. But you have to, you just gotta do it, man.
Got it. So I get it. So we're not talking about reverse engineering here, which is also a very useful tool, but it's actually visualizing.
Yeah, begin with the end in mind. Where do you want this to go? It's the same thing as asking a client, hey, what would need to happen? Like you just said, Jeff, you said it perfectly. If we decide to work together 3 months from now, what would make you say, wow, I'm so glad I chose this guy? You're forcing them to visualize the end in mind. And that allows you to execute perfectly for that client because they just told you what they need to see.
Yeah, it's right in line with what Dr. Maxwell Maltz says in his famous book, Psycho-Cybernetics. He says we're all born, we pop out of the womb with a success mechanism in our brain. In other words, we are born to be successful, but your success mechanism needs something to focus on, which in success world is a goal. So you have to clearly see the goal, the end game that you're talking about. See yourself winning, see yourself catching that touchdown pass, winning the game, being boosted up on everybody's shoulders, visualizing the success, because that brings you the vibration that you need to do the things that you need to do.
That is correct.
And there was one last thing that I want to talk about because we are running out of time. You suggest people do what you love. Can you expand on that just a bit? Because I love that concept.
Yeah. So, when I talk about do what you love, and I don't want people to mistake this for saying, hey, I'm going to plant roses outside. I love planting roses and expect that to blow up into a huge business somehow, right? The point is that if you don't love what you do every day, it's going to be very hard for you to achieve any success at it or have the creativity you need to make it into something, And if you take the idea of planting roses in your garden outside, the question is, could you win like a flower show? Could you teach people how to actually create a beautiful rose garden? But my point is, if you don't love what you do, I find that it's very difficult to sustain any trajectory of success and also to bring people to a level of success by doing what you do when you don't like it. I mean, I've had jobs when I was way younger that I didn't like, but I could tell you one thing. After 9/11, I promised myself I would never again be in a situation where I had a job or had a business or did anything to serve other people unless I was making an impact that matters, because that's what makes me happy. That's what I love to do every single day. And if I can't do that in whatever capacity I hold, I ain't doing it. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and you'll attract more and better clients when you're doing what you love. I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me after a day of training or a speech or something like that, and they'll say the same thing almost every time. You really love what you do, don't you? It shows. I'm like, I love what I do.
You love this, man.
I often jokingly say, don't tell my clients, but I pay them to let me be their coach. I pay them to let me train their sales.
Exactly.
And it's not quite true. I like getting paid for what I do, but man, I love my job. I'm blessed to have eventually found a career that I'm good at and really enjoy doing.
Exactly.
I often think about, if I hit Powerball tomorrow for about 100 million, would I stop doing what I'm doing? Well, I guess the answer is yes, I would. As much as I love what I'm doing, if I had 100 million or even 50 million bucks, I probably would stop. But man, I don't. And I'm blessed to be able to love what I do. And I know you do too.
I do. And, you can tell when people do. Like I watch Brian Keith McNeil a lot on his lives and stuff like that. Nobody can tell me that Brian doesn't know what he does. He absolutely relishes in it. And I think he swims in it and bathes in it like every day and night, to be quite frank.
That and big cigars.
Yeah, and big cigars. I know he loves that stuff.
Two things that he absolutely loves. Well, I love you, Dean Forbes. Dean, can you tell people how can they get in touch with you if they want to talk to you, and where can they get the book, The Top 7 Killer Success Secrets of Incredibly Successful People?
Absolutely. So best place to get the book right now is just go to Amazon. You can type in my name, type in the name of the book, Dean Forbes, or, Top 7 Killer Success Secrets, and it will pop right up. Please go buy the book and leave a 5-star review, because that helps more people get served what they need to get served in order for them to be successful. Appreciate that. Best way to get in touch with me right now, Facebook. Type my name in, hit me up on Messenger. That is the best place to get in touch with me right now if you want to talk to me. And if there anybody in here that is running a salon right now and you're doing 350,000 or more in revenue right now, and you want to scale to $1 million in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm your guy.
And Dean, if they buy the book and send it to you, will you send it back with a nice inscription like you did for me?
I would absolutely do that.
Fair enough. Well, Dean, thank you so much for writing this book. I think it's important, and it's filled with great tips, again, that are so easily digestible. There's nothing in here that's difficult to implement. It's all very easy stuff to do as long as you're aware of it. And I appreciate your coming on and sharing this information with everybody today. I wish you only huge success. I expect to see you at the top of the New York Times bestseller list any day. And thanks again. Have a great weekend. And as I end all these broadcasts, thank you all for joining us today. If you're watching on the replay, please be sure to replay in the comments. And please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great week, guys. Bye.